Hello, everyone. My name's Peter Towers. I'm the Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to this ESS BIZTOOLS Business Advisory Services podcast. I'm joined today by Amanda Gascoigne from Amanda Gascoigne Consulting, and we're going to talk about how small and solo accounting firms can get involved in the delivery of business advisory services. How are you today, Amanda?
I'm great, thanks, Peter. How are you?
Very good, thank you. And I just need to. So we're going to talk about how these services, which we're calling business advisory services, can be delivered by smaller practitioners. But where does it all start? Do you think firms are doing enough talking to their clients, having a clear understanding of what the client does, having a cup of coffee with them occasionally, even not having the time clock running, I think is a good idea. And one of the key documents we've got in ESS BIZTOOLS that I think is ideal for a smaller practitioner is the SME needs analysis, because it covers a range of matters, starting a business, looking at some of the statistical data, ratio analysis, debtors management, but it's got some questions there. And I think it's a good idea if the accountant sits down and has a cup of coffee with a client and just talks about some of these issues, because in most cases, I found over the years that I got work out of it. What do you think?
I totally agree, Peter. I don't think that practice owners are spending enough time or accountants are spending enough time with their clients to really dig deep and see how much more they can help their clients and add value to the relationship. Having some sort of framework, as you've suggested, is actually a great opportunity and something they can use to actually start talking with their clients about a various numbers of things. And I know when I started out in practice, so for those that haven't seen me before, I was a practice owner for 18 years and now I coach and mentor small and solo accounting practices. But one of the things that I loved doing was client meetings, and whether that be a client meeting to discuss financial statements at the end of year or just other meetings, I really think and for the listeners and the viewers here, thinking about how that makes you feel when you do have those meetings, and when you start to have them now, maybe pausing for a moment to see how could you do more of those. And I think everyone is one of the reasons why we're not doing those meetings as much. It could be time pressures that's actually stopping those, because I know accountants are so under the pump. They've got so many things, so many deadlines, but this is actually a really critical part of that nurturing and strengthening and ensuring that long-term relationship. And I know for me that was something very important in my practice. So after I sold at 18 years, I had many clients that were clients with me even before I started my practice that came with me. And I think that is, a really great measure of success. Those clients, many of them are still with my brother who took over. So I don't think we can underestimate the loyalty piece and how much that just, it's such a two-way street, how you can have these wonderful relationships. And yes, compliance falls part of it, but so too does advisory and all the extra things we can help them with. And just talking, because it might not even be something that we have to do. It could be something that we're connecting with one of our colleagues, and we can be that facilitator or the connector. But unless we're sitting talking to them, understanding their needs, and really getting that stronger relationship, we can't actually help them at that next level.
Yes, that's right. And this facilitator, project manager, call it what you like, role, I think is very important. Part of my career, and I know you know, but I spent in a public company as the chief financial officer and company secretary. But in lots of cases, I was a project manager. The CEO would send me all sorts of notes to say, can you sort this out? Can you get onto this solicitor? Can you find a marketing person to do this for us and whatever? So it became a bit of a sorting house. I think our SME clients really are looking for the same sort of services, and I know some accountants are providing it. And it's been there, being a good listener, listening to what the client's problem really is, and then solving it. And if the accountant, acting more like a CFO, can't solve the problem, that's all right. Just find someone else and project manage it. Make sure that there's a communication with the client. Make sure there's follow up. I've been watching another firm's broadcast today and yesterday on a range of issues, and they talked about this a fair bit. That and they're talking about estate planning. That the accountant mightn't be able to do it all, but should be able to project manage it and make sure the information's flowing through. What can be done with meetings then? I think one of the ways they can be blended into what's being provided to the client is to try to encourage the client to be producing at least quarterly financial accounts and then sitting down and having a business review meeting. But go beyond the financial accounts. Look at the key performance indicators, or what we call them in ESS in our final report, the business health check, which is really a comparison of KPIs from 1 week or 1 month to the previous, so that you can get an idea of how the business is going. I think this is one of the challenge accountants have got, that we need to, in mechanical terms, get in underneath the bonnet of the car and try to understand how everything works. In some respects, accountants get spoiled a bit because the financial accounts are basically being prepared by other people, haven't they? The input's been done, and so you've got the final reports. But what makes a business tick, I think, is really getting those key performance indicators, those ratios, those little figures that mean something, that probably in preparing annual accounts and tax returns, you don't look at, but they're very necessary for the business.
Yeah, and leading to that point on how we can start doing this and how we can have these conversations, because I do think this quandary we're in, we might as accountants want to actually deliver these services, yet we don't know how to do them cost effectively. On the flip side, our clients may not even know that they need these services, and even if they know they need them, they often don't want to pay. So we are in this quandary, but that's not an excuse not to do them. So one of the things that we did when we had our end of financial year meeting, of course, we went through the financials, but I didn't have a listed agenda as such. Although in some respects I did, but not an actual agenda. But when I actually sent those financials out, or whether I had them ready to present, I actually had some other information accompanying the financials, and I used to call that a business analysis report, where I did actually, the very first item of that was a KPI, and it was in relation to either the ATO small business benchmark. It might have been something I knew it was in their industry, or it could have actually been some KPIs that we'd actually set with the client previously. But we actually had that, what their cost of goods sold was, what their wages were as a percentage of turnover. That was the very first thing they opened up when they saw this business analysis report. And then subsequently, there was other things. Some were generic. It might have been, how often have you been checking your insurances? Have you got an up-to-date will? And just, it was like a little bit of a summary. It may have been a discussion about the director's loan, or it may have been what we'd done just to reaffirm what we'd done with FBT. So it was sort of related to the financials, but it was also an educative piece of paper, and a bit of so they could actually go through. And then that actually also cemented what we were talking about. So it was sort of a rough agenda that enabled me to cover off the things that are important. It wasn't an extra sell by any means, but it was just actually helping them understand their financials, understanding what was happening, maybe giving them some ideas on how we could work together in the future to change some of those things. But it was also a great document they could go and refer back to after the meeting. I wonder what Amanda said about that. Oh, I think she said that we need to be looking at this. And maybe it was a contact, like here's a financial planner, here's someone that can assist you with, an insurance review or whatever. I may have actually even gone to that detail and put someone that I recommended they talk to at some point. Now, that might not have been the next day. It might not have been, that year. It might have been 6 months later. But they didn't have to ring me, which saved me time. But they could go back, and I was actually empowering them to do some more things in their businesses. So I think having some sort of agenda is really great. And then if out of some of that work, they might actually say, look, okay, I can really see that we have been going backwards for the last couple of years, or might have been going, we've been getting better and better. We definitely now need to set up that self-managed super fund. We definitely need to look at something else. And then of that, you could actually get more work. But I didn't do it necessarily to make more money. It was just really that cementing the relationship, helping them and showing them all the other things that I was capable of, instead of just doing a set of financials or tax returns. So there's a number of ways you can do that and start that conversation off.
It sure is. So what sort of work do you think a smaller firm could start offering? Because in ESS BIZTOOLS, we've got 32 product packages. You don't need all them to start with. You might only need one or two or three. In fact, we have a special offer on at present where we've got 7 packages, but 4 of them are to assist the marketing and promotion of the firm. Because I think one of the problems we have is that a lot of us assume that our clients know that we're suddenly supplying some extra services. Well, the client doesn't know that, especially if for years an individual firm has basically only been doing tax type work. If you're suddenly going to start looking at some of these other areas, even gearing up to have a meeting every quarter, you need to tell your clients about it. And the old marketing comment is you need to tell them about 8 times before it really sinks in.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I did on that front in practice, without being this really salesy type person. I don't think of it. I know, I think it was James from Go Proposal talks about not selling, but serving. And I'd love everyone to think about that we're not trying to sell clients more things, we're trying to serve them better. So thinking about what things that you could do. So I often would put some of these offerings in my newsletter. So monthly or quarterly newsletters, I've done both, whereas I would talk about what they could be thinking about. So obviously twice a year, we've got an opportunity to do budgeting, cash flows, goal setting with clients, the new financial year and a new calendar year. So they would be in there as, this is what I'm actually offering this quarter, or this is what a lot of people are doing. I would actually put up the price because I really love standardized pricing. And if you've got similar types of clients and you've got a systemized way of doing it, you can pretty much know what you're going to charge. So I would give them an idea. This is what it's going to cost for this particular service. FBT, we may have done a seminar and talked about this is what we're going to be doing as part of our process, which was a value add to them that we were doing, and sort of giving them information at that time. So it could be seminars, it could be in newsletters, it could be now with social media. Start planting the seed. And I know I speak to a lot of practice owners that say, oh, we've already tried that and it hasn't worked. Like you said, 8 times, to get that message across. So if they've sent in your newsletter, they've seen it in, maybe you've run a seminar or we've got a webinar these days, something they could get on your website. If you then have, on social media, all of these touch points and talking about it in a meeting. And I also love the idea of talking about it when you first get a client. So just when they come in, they're looking to see whether they want to work with you and you want to work with them. I would actually use that as an opportunity just to explain some of the services that you offer. And, it just could be a matter of, just, 5 minutes about just letting them know that, in February, you'll get an email from us about tax planning and you'll get these things. So if you want those services, we can deliver those. So they've already heard about it. And chances are if they're coming to you from another practice, it's probably because they haven't been served enough from that practice. So don't predetermine that some of these people will not pay for these services. They will. And, it could be at the year-end meeting, Peter, if someone has got a bill that they weren't expecting, perfect opportunity to say, look, I've done everything I can to minimize your tax for this year, but that's why it's so important to keep looking at your numbers. And, even if they don't have the quarterly meetings, I want to touch base with you next February, next March, so we can actually do that and get some planning. So, utilizing some of these things as we're going. But to be able to do that, you've got to have a clear mind. And being on the run all the time, going from one deadline to another, putting out a fire, just, you've got this constant cycle. It's very hard to think proactively about this. So it really does take time for practice owners. And I suggest, in December, January, think about what are the things that you'd like to change in your practice and how you can do that, because it does take planning on the, accountant's part as well, how that's going to roll out. And, capacity wise, I see so many practice owners struggling to meet their deadlines, the 15th of May, 5th of June, 30th of June deadlines. And, my way of thinking would be, if you can try to meet a lot of your compliance work, by the end of February, so you've got 8 months, that's still giving you time during the year to have those quarterly meetings. But in that last half of the financial year, that's when we're on a really great cycle to be looking at the tax planning, looking about what else we can do with our clients, what we can do from an advisory service, and then piecing that together.
Yeah.
Because we don't need double the amount of clients. We need to be doing double the amount of work for the existing one. So if you're a practice owner that actually has trouble meeting the deadlines, maybe it's an opportunity to cull some of your clients if you really want to get into this space. I can assure you that if you've got the systems, you will get that extra work, but you have to make a proactive decision. So maybe culling some clients, the clients that just want a transactional type service, because they're the people that often don't want to pay. They want to pay their least amount of money, but they want you to be reactive. They want to be able to talk to you more often. I would suggest we move those away from the practice and then moving and actually spending time with the clients that are prepared to pay and that really want these services. So it is a bit of a planning, but if you maybe look at it to start with, let's move on half a dozen or a dozen clients, and let's see what income we've lost, how we can actually add that extra income to another client.
Yes, Amanda. In fact, Andrew Geddes, one of the leading Australian accounting trainers and mentors over the years, made exactly that same comment in one of these podcast videos a couple of weeks ago, when he indicated that if you're offering the services to business clients, your fees will grow because they keep on wanting you to do extra work once they know you can do it. So you may find yourself far more comfortable with, and Andrew used an example of half the number of clients you got at present, but you might be doing 4 times as much per client as what you were doing previously because you're offering services. It's a bit of, you might think that's a huge gamble, but I can assure the people listening and watching us that that's what really happens. A significant number of your clients are really interested in getting more services, but you've got to do some volunteering to them. You've got to prompt them to recognize that you can do it. And it might be something as simple as debtors days outstanding. One of my little tricks is I asked accountants what the average debtors days outstanding are in their firm, in their clients. Unfortunately, many of them really got no idea. And I think because it's not a calculation for the tax return, a lot of us in our profession are not even looking at it. But it's a vital figure for cash flow management. It tells you a lot of things of what's going on. And there's a service you can then offer. Within ESS BIZTOOLS, we have a package which will help you undertake a complete review of your client's debtors system and then give them their own system, because we've got templates there. You just edit them, put their name on them, and they've got a written system, because I think that's one of the reasons. And to put it in its context, Australia's got one of the highest debtors days outstanding in the world. A few years ago, we won the award of having the longest debtors days outstanding. So it's a great job to undertake the review and to introduce a new system. There's probably fees of $3,000 to $5,000. And then you've got a client who hopefully you're going to be able to reduce their debtors days outstanding. They're going to be very happy. If you've taken them from 80 days down to 45 days, that's, in most businesses, that's a fair bit of cash coming into the business.
Yeah. So one of the things there, Peter, just even to, like, you may only have, 10% or 20% of your client base that would need that service. Maybe let's say 10 to start with that would take that up. But what you do, instead of that cherry picking of who do we need, or it's too hard to work at, who we would need to market that service to, that's going to be another objection that we could potentially have. What I'd encourage everyone to do, which one of the things that I love doing, every quarter with our BAS, we chose a theme that we would actually just put an extra paragraph in everyone's letter, same paragraph and with a particular topic. So it may have been that debtors day, letting people know and quickly doing a calculation, doing a screenshot and actually putting that in that BAS letter. So it literally might take you 10 minutes extra to do, put a blurb and then the actual the stat. And that gets that creates the conversation. So that tiny little thing, because I know a lot of SMEs think that all we do when we do a BAS, we just click a button and we produce this lovely BAS report, lodge it with the ATO and charge them a few $100s. Oh, that they might actually, they don't realize that we are reconciling things. We are doing some checks and balances. We're actually doing some more work than that. But this actually really goes to show that we are doing a little bit more of that. We've actually taken the care to look at those numbers. So yes, we only might need to press a report to get that, but just the fact that we've got a standardized paragraph or two, plop their numbers into it, that shows to them that we do care and that we want to help them. Yeah. And if it's great, just even the fact that you say, well done, you're above the industry average, or you're on track, you've done really well, whatever it happens to be. You could even share what the industry average is if you can get that information, but just giving them that validation that they're going really well. Because as a small business owner, they might not have people to be their cheer squads. And we can actually do that, and the amount of confidence that actually gives is amazing.
That's right.
Just think about some of these little things that we can do to help with our financial literacy of our clients, empower them with the numbers, and actually think that this stuff is really good.
That's right. And one of the key areas there, I think, is in charge out rates that tradies set. Now, virtually every one of the accountants we're talking to today will have tradie clients, whether they're carpenters, they're painters, they're mechanics, they're roof fixers, whatever. There's hundreds of them in classifications. What do you do for them? A lot of them are now running their own businesses. That got forced on them over the years for various reasons, which we won't go into. But what's a tradie doing? They're basically selling labour, their own and their employees. They've got their overhead expenses to run their business, but most of them are buying products in for their clients, their customers, and most of them mark that up, or they tell you they're going to mark it up. Some of them don't do it as diligently, I think, is what they tell you. And they should have a profit target. What's their investment worth in the business, or just what profit do they want to make? Now, we have a product in ESS BIZTOOLS that facilitates the calculation of those charge out rates. And then that's a great tool to convene a monthly or quarterly meeting around also, because how are we going? One of our clients, one of our subscribers to ESS BIZTOOLS told a marketing survey we had recently that he uses it for 110 clients. And then they have a monthly board of advice meeting. So he's increased the fee by $5,000 to $7,000 per client. He's got 110 of them. That's a great chunk of fees. That's over and above the normal annual accounts and tax return. So will that help SME clients have a better understanding of how they're going, the ones in trades?
Absolutely. But the marketing of that, let's say we've identified we have 110 clients, and we send a big a marketing blast out to those 110 clients and says, we've now got a product that we can do for you. Maybe you might just, just say $1,000. Let's say $1,100. Let's just, everyone's learning about this. Let's say, introductory price of $1,100 to do this. Probably you're not going to get very many people and you go, oh, that was a waste of time. A better way of doing that is, we need to show value. So as a firm, how many plumbers do you have? How many bricklayers do you have? How many carpenters? we can easily go into their files and see roughly what each are charging per hour. Then we might just we might be able to do a bit of a research into, if it's a painter, you might be able to jump on the Dulux or the Bristol website. There could be some standard things there, or the accountant or some of these clients might be able to log in and get that information. We could then say, in that, say, the BAS letter, when you do the BAS, look, just letting you know your hourly rates for, the owner, the tradesman, the apprentice are this, letting you know that the industry average, or maybe, you might even want to say a summary of where our clients are, because you're not telling them what clients are, you might be able to say that, this is the range. They can see where they are in that range. So you're not giving them anything really specific. If you would like us to see how we can get your rate, or what your rate should be based on how you're running your business, because it could depend on the types of staff they've got. This is a service we can offer. I reckon you would get a pretty high take up. There's chances you probably are going to get the whole 110.
Yeah.
But we need to give them a little bit, as you said, maybe a little bit for free, but that wouldn't take you long to do.
No.
Or even if you had one of your staff members ring around, even like we've all used a plumber, a painter, an electrician, a bricklayer, even just within, your staff, ask what's the average that you pay for someone? Like, just give them an idea, so we're not giving them anything definitive, but it's actually opening their eyes. They could actually be making more money. They could happen to be able to work less and make the same amount of money. We need to actually open that conversation up, and then we've got real data to use. So I would suggest again, it takes time for someone to sit back and say, okay, how could I get this, this great amount of work and advisory work into the hands of my clients? We have to work out some different ways. And that might be that business analysis report that I was talking about. That might be in there. You have some rough ideas of what each of the trades are making. But I just really think more of a specific campaign that you might do with those tradie clients at BAS time, because I'm also quite mindful that everyone is time poor. So they don't want to go and, try to offer these value-added services to their whole client base, because they're not going to have the capacity to do it. So just test a few little things out and work out how you can do that. But look, I think that's a great thing. And even for the practice owners themselves to be doing this on their own business. The amount of practice owners that I talk to, that I ask them, are they running these numbers for themselves? They're not. So, what are the drivers in an accounting practice? What are the drivers in a consulting business? What are the drivers in a construction business? I would, really encourage everyone to check out what those things are. Do a little bit of professional development in that space. And, it's not, it's not rocket science, a lot of this stuff, but because we are so busy, and, I'm, for one, was like that as well. When I was in practice, it took me time to take time out of my practice to actually spend on it and really think how I could add more value, how I could actually do more work that I enjoyed, and also giving my staff more enjoyable work. Because, 12 months of doing compliance, of doing tax returns, it's pretty monotonous, some of this stuff. And is it any wonder we have problems retaining good talent? Because we're not giving them some exciting stuff. Of course, we've got to do that bread and butter, but how can we actually do other things?
Okay, so within ESS BIZTOOLS, we've got a package that's very similar, which is only looking at professional services. And we also have a package which will help accountants with their retailers and wholesalers, because they're slightly different. They're really not selling labour, they're selling products. But when they buy those products they're in all different types of categories. Every business has got some star stocks, but they've always got cash cows. And they're products that they sell a lot of, but they don't get much markup on. Milk, newspapers, bread. You don't make much money out of that. And then
I think that's a good point, Peter. And I had that written down as we were talking about the charge rates. When you're even looking at a client's chart of accounts, are we separating, like, say, one of the things that I know that we did, let's say you've got a painter. Are we actually putting wages and salaries and putting it all as an overhead expenses, which I know and I see a lot of people do. It's all under wages and salaries. It's all under superannuation. Just even by virtue of putting the painting wages and the super up in the cost of goods sold section.
That's what it is, isn't
so
it?
we can see, that's what it is. So, you know, in software these days, it's very easy because we can assign particular staff members whether they're going to be a cost of goods sold or whether they're going to be an overhead. In an accounting practice, I share my template of chart of accounts, and I always had my staff members as a cost of goods sold. If I did some consulting, if I paid them as contractors, anything like that. If you know, I had a staff member that had a salary sacrifice vehicle, it went in cost of goods sold, didn't go to motor vehicle expenses, because we want to see what that is. We want to see. So you know, that's just something that is quite easy to see. And once our clients are seeing that, and we're saying we want to give you that target, we want your wages to be, you know, your gross profit to be X amount of percentage. My goodness, it's a pretty easy report to print out every month. And as they see that gross profit changing, that's another way that they'll pick up the phone and say, oh, I need to talk to you. This number, it's going, you know, going down or going up. We need to look at it. So it can just be some couple of little drivers that you could actually, it's the clients then coming to you saying, we need help.
And it's the client's friends, because they tend to talk, don't they? They say, gee, Amanda's changed how we do our accounts. We've changed our chart of accounts. Don't even know what that means, the client might say. But I'm getting more meaningful reports. And a lot of them need to be blended in with the key performance indicators. So they start meaning something to the client because they're running the business. And this is what goes on in the big end of town also. It's exactly the same. Accountants who are working in big corporations don't sit there doing profit and loss accounts all day. They do a whole range of other things. And really, I think this is one of the challenges. If accountants are signing on, in effect, to diversify services, to supply some of their fee income from business advisory services, not many will ever have 100% coming from non-compliance services. But you need to be trying to put yourself in the position that you're now virtually the internal accountant for that plumber, for that painter, for that chiropractor business or whatever, and looking at one of the professions. And then you will be far more conscious of how the key performance indicators all come into play.
Yeah. And, you know, I think even when you're sitting there of a brand new client, because I also think it's a huge opportunity when we get new clients coming in to have some of these conversations. So that could be one of the things, if you've got an agenda when you first meet with a new client, whether it's a written down agenda, whether you know in your mind what you've got to ask them. But one of the things that, you know, I would certainly look at is when you open up a set of financials to see, have they got the cost of goods sold separated out? That's the first thing. And you say, oh, look, I could see some things that we could actually help you with straight away if we just sort of change the chart of accounts over. So you can actually see what your cost of goods sold is, how much your labor is, or, you know, what this percentage is. You know, in Xero, you can actually create some extra reports that might be, you know, specific for certain things. So I really think having that, and it's actually having that more analytical look. So if you pose that question, or just that conversation that you have with the clients the very first time you meet with them, when you actually go through any compliance meetings, when you talk about something else, it's not just the numbers that we're seeing to get the tax return. It's numbers that add meaning. And, you know, whilst that might be a little bit scary for some, because they haven't done it for so long, they're just used to, and maybe it's a thing that we're hiding behind just the financials and the tax returns because we haven't done some of this other advisory. And how can we now start offering this, and how can we now start saying that we're doing it? Well, I think, you know, we've got to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, from here on in, our ideal client is one that we actually can do compliance and advisory. Or you might say, look, we want our client base to be made up of, there might be some legacy clients that you really love, but you know that they're not going to want some of this stuff. But really, who doesn't want this information? You know, even if you've got a scaled down version for some of those, but then when you've got new people coming in, talking about it, and then getting testimonials from people that it's
Yeah.
actually changed their life, that changed the way they look at this stuff. And I think sometimes SMEs think that they're not good with numbers, that they're just really good at doing the doing, and they'll leave everything else to the accountant. That spreads an accountant awfully thin too. So it's about empowering our clients to understand the numbers better, to use them to drive their business, to use them to ask questions. And I tell you, it's such a more enjoyable relationship, and those clients are the ones that will stick with you for that 15, 20 plus years, because you've made a difference, and they'll always remember that.
So, Amanda, we've talked about a few issues today, and we're primarily talking to smaller firms and sole practitioners. We have alerted them to using a document like an SME needs analysis to prompt to have those conversations, so they don't really have to sit there and worry themselves beforehand what they're going to talk to the client about. We've gone through and put that together. We've also talked about the tradie clients, and there's thousands of them around Australia, and the professional firms and retailers and wholesalers. They all need assistance, and debtors' days outstanding. I think there's enough there for someone who's thinking about making that step and saying, how do I get into business advisory services? And I suspect from my time, and I used to run a small firm at one stage many years ago now, before I got into consulting and ESS BIZTOOLS full time. But I think that group of people we're talking about is probably 70 to 80% of the clients of an average smaller firm. So why not pick them out, not all at once, pick out 2 or 3 of them in each of the groups and start the conversation.
Absolutely.
And we have at ESS BIZTOOLS, we have a special on at present. I got to get a commercial plug in, whereby you can get started with our Tools to Create Opportunities package. Your investment is $795 for the year, including GST. That gives you 7 packages that you can start using. Probably our better package, though, is our starter package. It's for $1 under $1,000 for the 12 months. It gives you 17 packages and will cover everything we've talked about today and more, of course, so that you can be offering these services. And that includes one mentoring session, and you can buy some additional mentoring sessions if you want as well. So do you think that would help smaller and sole firms?
Absolutely. One of the points I've written down as we were talking, there is no need to reinvent the wheel. This stuff is tried and tested, and this is the basis. So you can always add your flair and add something else to it. But if you've got something that you just start off with, and then you want to build on it, but this actually, you could just, hit the ground running with these tools. And then you can massage it and change a little bit for things that you actually want to. You can take some things out, you can add some things in if there's some things that you particularly like, but literally get this and you can run with it. So definitely that. And then what I think we haven't mentioned, but once we've got this bedded down, so I always like to go back a few steps, and we talk about some of this foundational stuff which we're doing, and we can build on these great relationships we've got. But then even looking out to the future, those quarterly meetings, those coaching type meetings, they are the things that you're going to help clients stay on track. So, whereas this initial stuff is going to be more like the one-off project basis, you just don't know where that's going to lead. And, SMEs, much like SME accounting practice owners, do often feel very alone. Who do they ask? What do they, it's often they don't know what they don't know. And you being this, intermediary between all of that is just priceless to them. So they will keep coming and coming back for more all the time. So I think about this. It's not just a matter of adding advisory right now and things like the charge out rate. That's our starting point. But my goodness, the world's the oyster with what we can do. And we have these clients for so long. And, there is so many SMEs that aren't getting this advice from their accountants. So that word of mouth, that beautiful thing, word of mouth, they'll just keep coming. And then there's ideal clients that want value-added services will be, what your whole client base is. And I'll do a quick plug for any of the SME practice owners out there that do want and a lot, if you like to be around like-minded, other practice owners, come join the Balance Firm, which is as my private Facebook group, and you can just search thebalancefirm.com. And yeah, we'd love to see you. We've got over 700 accountants in our network, which is a lovely community where we talk all things practice management, how we can have better relationships with our clients and our staff, and how we can have a better life, basically. So very holistic things as well, work-life balance, some contemporary issues that we're always encouraging accountants to embrace.
Okay, so how do they contact you, Amanda?
So you can, to my both websites, I've got two ones, amandagascoigne.com, and the other one is thebalancefirm.com.
Okay, so thank you very much. And if you want to contact me at ESS BizTools, Peter at essbiztools.com.au, or go to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au. Amanda, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me. And I do wish everyone all the very best. But look, I think that those pricing is, very affordable. And I would think that, in one service, you'll get your return on investment.
That's right. And then you can get started on this journey. It's nice to get some early goals in a football or basketball context, or netball, whichever sport you're playing. And it's the same in this sort of service. Don't go out and think you're going to make $1 million out of this from day one. I think the first objective should be to earn $1,000, so you cover your subscription to ESS BizTools. Hopefully, you're going to make a bit more than that. So set out to try to earn, say, $4,000 or $5,000 first up. You've covered your subscription, and hopefully, you're doing that every month, and you're underway in establishing business advisory services. So thanks, Amanda, and thank you everyone for listening or viewing, and we'll catch you again when we present our next ESS BizTools Business Advisory Services podcast. Thanks, Amanda. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.